I'm Tamara Thomas, editor-in-chief of UrbanHealthToday.com, part of the DocWire family of medical news sites, and I want to thank you for tuning in to Urban Health Weekly. Our goal each week is to keep you informed of the latest in health and medical news right from today's headlines. It's time to empower yourself with open conversations about your medical care with news that matters to you. So are you ready? Let's get started. Hey, welcome to Urban Health Weekly. I'm Tamara, and I'm here with my friends Lou and Jackie. Hello, people.
Hello. How are you guys?
Good.
I'm all right. No complaints here. It's freezing here.
So cold. Oh my
God. It's so cold. I don't even want to exercise. And I like exercising daily, but it's so cold. I can't even get my body to cooperate and put on gym clothes and get on. I just can't. I can't get myself into it. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Maybe
I find cold really zaps motivation.
I'm telling you, it's like all you want to do is throw the covers over your head and stay warm and stay perfectly still and just marinate in your own heat. That's all I want to do. And it's not like I'm not well rested. I am well rested, but all I want to do in the mornings after I get my little one ready is I just want to throw the covers over myself and sleep. The other day, I just fell asleep on the sofa. Right where I sat down, I was like, I just need to sit for a minute. And then I just fell asleep. I just keeled over. It's terrible. It's terrible.
The dog this morning ran right back into the house. He was like, oh, it's so cold. He didn't want to do his business and linger or nothing.
That's the other thing. The dogs, they don't, usually they like to stay outside and enjoy the park and stuff. Absolute quiet this morning, which is that never happens, but that's what happened this morning. It was so cold. It was all right, we're just going to do our business and let us in.
Hurry up.
Exactly. So we have an interesting show for today. But first of all, before we get into the topic, which is we're going to be talking about what's going on with ASCO, that is the American Society for Cancer and Oncology. I want to talk about something interesting that I saw in the New York Post yesterday. Okay. And that is, bam, spike in autoimmune diseases blamed on fast food. That's the mic dropping. I'm dropping it. It's about time. So listen to this. Are you groaning?
Yeah, I grew up on Mickey D's, on Bob's Big Boy.
Bob's Big Boy.
That's right.
I've never even laid eyes on a Bob's Big Boy.
Oh, the original Whopper.
I did, however, see the Fat Boy that you were telling me about, that Fat Boy franchise.
Oh yeah, Fat Boy.
I had to laugh when
I don't know that franchise.
Have you heard of it, Fat Boy?
No.
New York franchise.
It's a New York franchise. That's why. Yeah, he was telling me about it, and I was just the name was it just sounded so gross. Who would come up with a name like that? But then I was driving. I think I was driving in Bed-Stuy, and then I saw Fat Boys coming soon, and I was like, oh my God! So apparently this thing is bigger than I thought, and it has more than one location.
Well, what is it? What is it?
It's just a place it's like a fast food place that you get all kinds of, you can tell.
Well, it's a place, I don't know, you don't really feel.
Is it burgers?
Yeah, because everything is kind of on the plus side in terms of portions. And
you don't ever have to ask for supersize. It just automatically
comes size.
That's the small. Large. Everything is large. And
wow.
And hey, there's never a good time for pizza to be not made. So pizza for breakfast is absolutely acceptable.
Oh my God.
Wow.
The civilization is just crumbling as we speak. But listen to this. Disorders of the immune system are on the rise everywhere, thanks to the global popularity of the so-called Western diet. Autoimmune diseases, including type 1 diabetes, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's disease, and ulcerative colitis, have spiked in recent decades, according to scientists James Lee and Carola Venusa at London's Francis Crick Institute. Numbers of autoimmune cases began to increase about 40 years ago in the West. That's what Lee told the Guardian Observer in an interview. However, we are now seeing some emerge in countries that never had such diseases before. Lee pointed to cases in Asia and the Middle East, which has felt the boom of the fast food industry during that time, and which has seen the biggest recent upswing in inflammatory bowel disease. Before that, they had hardly seen the disease, he said. Autoimmune diseases arise out of the immune system's inability to differentiate invading organisms from local tissues, prompting immune defenses to attack healthy cells too. Inflammation due to repeated immune response can cause long-term damage to the affected organs and tissues and also lead to cancer. Today, an estimated 24 million Americans, nearly 7% of the population, suffer from one of this group of illnesses. That's according to the U.S. National Institutes of Health. Their studies have shown an increase in the prevalence of autoimmune disease biomarkers in those aged 12 and up from 22 million Americans between 88 to 91 to 41 million between 2011 and 2012.
Yikes.
I know. Human genetics hasn't altered over the past few decades, Lee explained. So something must be changing in the outside world in a way that is increasing our predisposition to autoimmune disease. Venusa said fast food diet lacks certain important ingredients such as fiber, and evidence suggests this alteration affects a person's microbiome, which is the collection of microorganisms that we have in our gut and which play a key role in controlling various bodily functions, such as immune function. These changes in our microbiomes are then triggering autoimmune diseases, of which more than 100 types have now been discovered. Well, they started out swinging, which I found myself saying, finally, someone is speaking facts here, right? And then they mucked it up with this nonsense. They said, we have lots of potentially useful new therapies that are being developed all the time, but we don't know which patients to give them to because we now realize we don't know exactly which version of the disease they have. That's from Venusa.
Okay.
They remind us that there are currently no cures for these diseases. Growing numbers of people face surgery or will have to have regular injections for the rest of their lives. That's Lee speaking. It can be grim for patients and a massive strain on health services, hence the urgent need to find new effective treatments. What? Therapies?
No prevention. What
are they talking about, right?
Oh.
Like exactly, they had me until they said that part. To me, the answer is amazingly simple. Severely limit the amount of fast food you eat. Eat foods that are less processed, as close to their original state as possible. Fruits, salads, meat not tucked between buns, and that even mold won't to eat. You want convenient food? Eat a piece of fruit. Hungry? Eat a giant colorful salad with lean protein in it and lots of avocado to fill you up. At the very least, have some greens with whatever meal you're having, or replace your fries or whatever starch with something green. I know people call it rabbit food. People are like, I'm not a rabbit. I don't eat rabbit food. But this is what we need to do to counter the scourge on our health system that is fast food. That's what we need to do. Why won't people say that? Why won't health experts just say it? Are they afraid of being sued? What do you think? What do you think, guys?
I think those guys are maybe industry people. That's the feeling I get.
Or do you think they're really in the dark?
I can't imagine. They must be coming from a position of trying to develop a therapy, develop a medication, and they're not thinking about prevention at all. They left that completely off the table.
By the way, can I just add this? I will say that the number of, I'm always shocked by the number of scientists who end up dying of cancer. I can't tell you how many people I've interviewed and then find out later that their partner died of like some cancer or something. Oh, there were 3 of you in the study. Oh, where's the other one? Oh, he or she died of cancer. So maybe there is something to.
I don't know that the studying and the taking action are necessarily the same thing. It's like having insight but changing your behavior. I'm sure they can be connected, but I don't think they're necessarily inevitable. So, is that what you're thinking?
I mean, yeah, I think there's I don't know if it's denial or this can't happen to me or this removal. This kind of once removed quality from, here's the data, but it doesn't affect me in reality.
So it's just like abstract thinking.
I think it's abstract in some way.
Okay.
because for you to have this data and know this data and know that these things are either that, or you fully have bought into that these chemicals that the FDA generally regards as safe really are safe. I mean, I'm not really sure, maybe they look at the chemical components and they say, sounds good to me. It doesn't sound harmful. And they don't realize that it's destroying them. I mean, what do you think, Lou?
I think, again,
Lou is reeling.
He's quiet.
the entire life, the
really,
entire
because
basis of my life has just been
he
shattered.
does not want to have to think about his food being
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
He wants to eat what he wants to eat, and he doesn't want to think about it.
We had fast food yesterday. I hate to say it. We pulled right through Wendy's. We've been doing it. It's my little guy's birthday week, and he just wants that addictive fast food. And I'm
it's
terrible.
Hard with kids. It's really
It's
hard
hard.
with kids. It really is hard with kids.
It is a little addictive, but let's start unpacking. First of all, the term fast food is like an all-encompassing thing.
All right.
And it really is what it says, fast food, something that's assembly line, you can just go and get, a little bit beyond the packaged thing that you would get at a store. And it's made to be that way. It's not made to be a staple in your diet the way a lot of people use it. Secondly, if you go to a fast food restaurant, let's say in Europe, you're getting a completely different,
That's true.
Yep, you get a Burger King over there. It tastes a lot better. The ingredients are more natural, and that's because
they have different food standards. That's for sure.
Different food.
Do they use pink slime in their nuggets? That's what I'd like to know.
I don't think so. I don't think that they allow that
allowed
in their food supply.
They don't allow.
They have laws.
The processed stuff.
No. The U.S. had sued the European Union many years ago for not importing their food because the European Union was like, we don't want your garbage.
They have a different standard. I remember as a kid living in Europe, we used to go to McDonald's as like a special thing so we could get a little dose of American. And they served like roast chicken at the McDonald's in the Netherlands and France. Like it was a different menu. And because I didn't like burgers as a kid, I ate roast chicken. Which I remember coming back here and being like, what? No roast chicken? Like,
yeah.
I remember when I was a teenager, and remember the old food pyramid where the majority was like the carbs and stuff like that, and then the next was the meat and the cheese. It was next. I remember
grains.
Yes, and then I remember thinking when I got a burger and fries. Because when I was growing up, we didn't eat that stuff. That my mom cooked, my dad cooked. We very, very rarely had McDonald's, like very rare occasion. Mm-hmm. But when I was a teenager and a little more in control of what I could get my hands on, I remember thinking like, I've got all my food groups here. I've got my starches. I've got my meat, my cheese.
I used to eat like a box of cereal and be like, my food pyramid. I remember that when
exactly. And you felt like you were getting a balanced meal. Like that was, but and that's probably what a lot of people still think.
At the top, or I should say the bottom, because they're not really at the top. It's the most harmful foods you'll find in the McDonald's, Burger Kings, Popeyes, Arby's, all of those are just prepackaged, pre-formulated foods in terms of where they just in and out, very little choices and all that. Then the next level down, and I don't even know if these guys are still around. You remember Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips?
I remember Arthur Treacher's. They used to be at King Plaza.
Right. You get
I never ate there, but I remember them.
You get that type, Boston Market.
Boston Market, sure.
Yeah, to an extent, Applebee's, all those. They're kind of a larger menu, but it's all prepackaged. Every store gets the same thing. It's to be sold and made. It's all bioengineered stuff, and not really good for you. In terms of on a long-term basis, you can get away with it one day. It's not a problem eating one day.
But listen, a lot of families, they give their kids Boston Market
Yep.
because it feels like a meal because you got
It feels more like a meal. Yeah.
right.
I
You
think
put it
that
on the
one's a
table,
better
you got your
choice.
potatoes, you got your meat, and remember that was the thing, the meat and potatoes. Remember,
Right.
Like,
You got to realize, in order to have a standard fare and keep their costs down, which is very important for fast foods,
mhm.
everything has to be pre-processed. Everything has to be, long shelf life. It's all coming out of one place. There's very little natural to be had there. Then you get, let's go down to the next level of chains, which should provide a healthier meal. So you start getting your Outbacks, your Olive Gardens, your
There's some
Think
cooking
those
going
are
on.
healthier?
the Red Lobster. They're healthier. They're not healthy, but they're healthier.
You mean they're less
unhealthy?
unhealthy?
Right,
So they're
that's-
less unhealthy. Okay, go ahead.
That's why I'm saying this is a pyramid, but I'm not sure who's at the top and who's at the bottom. They do have salads, especially Olive Garden has plenty of
Yes,
salads.
all the
and
salads you
that.
can eat. Yeah.
But it's not, even the salad ingredients that they use are not what I would call quality stuff. There's not a lot of variety in it. A lot of it is just leaf lettuce that doesn't have a lot
Oh
of.
yeah, leaf lettuce. That's not really.
Yeah. So my feeling is that.
You mean iceberg lettuce?
Yeah, iceberg lettuce.
Yes.
Sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah, the iceberg lettuce.
Yeah,
So
I wish leaf
yeah,
lettuce.
leafy. Yeah. And a lot of bread, those endless bread baskets that they're really designed to get you full.
Yes.
So when you look at that as an outsider, there's not a lot of health there. And what starts with fast food is that at first you say, okay, I did it today because I was in a hurry. Then it becomes once a month. Then it becomes your Tuesday meal.
Then it
When
becomes.
you realize it's part of your diet 3-4
Yes.
times a week.
Yeah.
And now we're getting into the danger zone.
Right.
It's convenient is what it comes
Yes.
down to, because we're all so strapped for time and scheduling,
Yes.
and there's
Yes.
so much like driving around, and yeah,
I wonder, this is just, I wonder if people watched a little less TV, let's say, do you think people would have more time to prepare meals? Or do you think if people spent less time on the internet, do you think people would have more time for meal prep?
I'll tell you,
I don't know.
I think fast food.
And I'm not placing a value judgment. I'm just asking a question.
I'll tell you what I think. I think that fast food has been rigged in a certain way that is so especially addictive and hyper palatable.
Oh my God.
I constantly get the thing where like I've got food I'm making, or I'm making this, and it's not, and not that I'm such a great cook, but it's not up to snuff. It doesn't have enough flavor. It doesn't have it's not as delicious, and it doesn't provide a craving that my kid is craving constantly. Like last night I gave him, we'd already had Wendy's for like, we'd had Wendy's like after school as a special treat. And then I went to give him something light for dinner, and I gave him some vegetables. And then he's like, I'm hungry, Mom. So I brought him an apple. He goes, no, Mom, I'm hungry. I go, I guess you're not really hungry, because if you were hungry, you'd be eating an apple, but you want specifically a bowl of ice cream. Like that confusion of like what's hungry and what's a craving.
Right.
I mean, he's got cravings. We crave those things.
But that goes back to the gut microbiome, like
I agree. There's no fiber going on, and there's no fiber going on in.
And so what happens is the biome, that's not good for you, is basically controlling your desire to eat certain foods. It literally wants you to eat more of the same kinds of food.
Feed the wrong microbiome.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you would have thought with the pandemic, and I don't believe that the fast food is just because people don't have time. I think it's a lack of prioritization, because with the pandemic,
that's an excellent point.
Yeah. With the pandemic, we would have seen the fast food places be really hit because people are working from home, large numbers of working.
To me, it's a reason to get out of the house and go through a drive-through.
You know what? A lot of the Grubhubs and all that are delivering, I see that from experience, from being a nosy neighbor looking out my window a lot. where I see my neighbors getting Grubhub deliveries from Burger King and all that.
Oh, you're
God.
paying for Grubhub and you're getting Burger King. That's
I know.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's-
you know,
yeah.
what's the excuse for that one? You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, I just think that it's, you know, if it was a time issue with the pandemic, we would have seen these numbers go down. And by these numbers, I'm talking about the earnings, because you know I'm
Yes, that's
a
true.
business guy. The earnings for McDonald's is skyrocketing. The Chipotle is double what it was, and all of these places.
That's outrageous.
Exactly. Just think of all the, like my kid craves Taco Bell. Like that is the worst, most unhealthy. And I was like, let's eat at like a delicious burrito restaurant that where
Or
they
make
make
burritos at home.
Yeah, well, he poo-poos my burritos. Like I think they're fine, but he, you know, he wants that extra. Also, it's the specialness. My mom cooked all these meals. We ate at home all the time. I always wanted the specialness of going out. Like, I don't know. I wanted takeout all the time as a kid. It's terrible, even though I didn't get takeout very often. So
that's interesting.
all I know is takeout. He would have DoorDashed or Grubhubbed Taco Bell. I was like, no, you aren't. If we're going to do something like that would have really offended me.
Oh, no, you better don't.
Right. But it is really like super cheap. It's super fast. It's super predictable. That's exactly right with that stuff. I mean, you know what you're getting.
Yeah, but you know what? These companies can do better, and they should do better.
Oh, that's a different perspective. Now you're saying they have a responsibility to do better.
No, I'm not saying they have a responsibility to do better.
They should.
I'm saying they can. They can, and they should do better. There's nothing that's saying that they have to do better. But so many people rely on they make money hand over fist. There's no reason why they're using the lowest common.
By the way, our McDonald's doesn't have salads anymore. Have you noticed that?
Nobody wants them. Nobody wants
salad. I was the only person.
And if you're a salad eater, you don't want a McDonald's salad.
Yeah, I mean, that's just what the parent has. That's what the parent has while the kids get the other stuff.
Yeah, and you know, and if you're a person,
they don't even bother now.
Right, and if you're a person that eats a salad, you're not trusting a McDonald's salad because it's probably not. It's not packed with nutrition like if you made a salad on your own, or if you went
to
a
fake
specialized. Like sweet peas or sweet greens or something like that, that specializes in salads, you know, that's where you're going to go if you're going to get a salad, or you're going to make a salad at home. So they have to go where the money is, unfortunately.
Right.
It's a shame. But I think people are just like super uninformed about food. And I think if more people knew better, they would do better. At least that's my hope. I don't know. Piggybacking on that, here's some interesting, did you know that cells accumulate cancer-causing mutations as we age?
Back to my theory that aging is an accumulation of injuries. So maybe
that's telling you. Yeah, aging is injury.
I thought it was an accumulation of annoyment, but paying bills.
That's a new word, annoyment. Cells with cancer-causing mutations become increasingly common as people age. That's according to findings published in the journal Aging and Cancer. To understand how cancer develops, researchers have been keen to examine genetic changes in human cells at different ages. Advanced sequencing technology has helped show that large numbers of human cells carry oncogenic, that means cancer-causing, mutations, even in people who have not yet developed cancer. According to the National Cancer Institute, about 40% of people will develop cancer over the course of their lifetime. So this, of course, means the majority of people won't develop cancer. To understand the genesis of cancer, we need to look at normal tissue. That's from Dr. Edward Evans, PhD of the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus. By the time it's developed into cancer, all the mutations are there, and we don't always know which ones are contributing to the actual genesis of cancer. Evans and James DeGregory, PhD, carried out a meta-analysis of genetic sequencing data in normal tissue to ID mutations that are usually found in cancer cells. They also quantified cells with oncogenic mutations that were seen in people without cancer. They focused on so-called somatic mutations. Those are the ones that develop over time, not the inherited ones, like say a BRCA would be an inherited gene mutation. With age, the proportion of cells with all three categories of cancer-related genes rises greatly. In people who are elderly, more than 50% of cells possess oncogenic mutations across various tissue types. Researchers noted that older people without cancer have around 100 billion cells with at least one cancer-causing mutation. Crazy, right?
Wow.
But we have about 3 trillion nucleated cells in our bodies. So to put it in perspective, 100 billion cells with oncogenic mutations isn't a majority of our total number of cells. That's from Evans. The rest of the article gets into their work, and you can read that if you're curious. A link will be in the podcast website. But I have to say, I find this fascinating, and now I will probably panic a lot less when I do my CA-125 blood test. That's
Okay.
the cancer. That's called cancer antigen 125, and it's a test to see the cancer levels in your blood. It's mostly used for ovarian cancer, but it's not terribly reliable because it picks up other kinds of cancer cells in the body as well. So that's why I'm not going to panic, because it goes up a teeny weeny bit every few years. And it was starting to make me nervous, like, oh no, I'm going to get cancer if this keeps up in like 20 years. But no, not now that I'm reading this, I'm like, no, not so fast. Pause. It's
All right. How did you get the Cancer 125 test? Your
the
doctor?
125. Oh, my gynecologist does it every year. Well,
Oh.
not every other year, but every year because of my BRCA mutation.
Ah.
Right. So we're on the lookout for this stuff to see, because there's no real screening for ovarian cancer. So that's why we do the CA-125 every year, which it's not perfect, but it keeps an eye on things.
All right.
So I don't know. So what do you guys think of this?
I'm all in favor.
Lou,
of testing.
you're an older person.
Oh.
So what do you think?
Well,
wiser.
if the men's health.
Why'd you say it with suspicion? Like you're not older. You are
Not
older.
today,
Not you don't feel
young.
older. You don't feel older today.
I don't know. I hate.
You
feeling
sound like Wendy Williams. I feel young.
I sound like the coach. Anyway,
You're not the caboose.
well, when it comes to men, the most likely type of cancer is prostate cancer. And
Right.
There is a.
That's the cancer that
PSA.
you'll die before you die of prostate cancer.
Just
slow
because
moving.
you don't get it, all right?
No, I'm
yeah.
not. Listen, listen. All right, I'll hush
like
up.
I won't get
But trans women have to worry about prostate cancer.
as long as you keep it inside of you, yeah. So when it comes to prostate cancer, there's a blood test that you take that
PSA.
PSA, and hopefully it's
Prostate specific antigen.
and that it gives you an indication that there might be a problem, and it's very it's rather reliable percentage wise. It's rather reliable. It's a pretty good indicator. For women, there's a lot of other factors that come into play, especially for breast and ovarian. And I'm all for testing. I think we should test. I think the body degenerates and different over time. And some of it is due to the environment, some of it is due to genetics, and some, I hate to say it, some of it is due to random. Or
You know what these doctors found, by the way, in this article? They found that the majority of these cancer cells line the digestive tract.
Eat your fiber. Eat whole food.
Exactly.
So I think with that we're gonna have to take a break now. But today's topic really ties into what we've been talking about.
Well, it's all leading up to it. I'm just asking you what
Well, what I think is that testing is great. Testing is great.
What Louis thinks is that he's gonna miss his fast food.
I'm still upset about the first thing.
He's still reeling from the final blow to his idea that
The death
fast
knell
food is
of
generally
fast food.
regarded as safe.
Yeah, but it's like we enter the car wash of life as a baby, and we come out as an old dude. As an old. And, I mean, something happens in there. And,
but do you really want food to speed it up? or
Well, that's the whole thing. You want to be in that car wash for as long as possible.
And you want your quality of life to be as, these people are talking about the injections and drugs. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's as obvious as the nose on our faces, but okay, I'm going to get off my little soapbox on that. We're going to take a break and we'll come back and we'll talk about gastroenterology and cancer disparities, GI cancer disparities, when we come back. Okay, so ASCO GI, that's the American Society of Cancer and Oncology, GI, is literally right upon us. Well, not upon us, but upon you GI professionals. And that is January 20th to 22nd in San Francisco and online. And a lot of what's on the menu is the discussion of equity or lack of equity in GI cancer screening and care. One of the things is about racial disparities that are persistent in GI cancers and beyond. Studies have shown that racial and ethnic minorities receive a lower quality of healthcare, even when income and access are taken into consideration. Rates of screening for cancers are low in minority patients, and death rates due to disease are disproportionately high. Between 2010 and 2016, the 5-year relative survival rate for white patients across cancer types was 68%, compared with 62% for Black patients. Overall cancer incidence rates for Black men were the highest reported at 540 per 100,000 population, compared with 501 per 100,000 for white men. Further, mortality rates for all cancer sites combined was 186 per 100,000 for Black patients versus 162.9 per 100,000 for white patients. Let me just stop here and point this out real quick. These numbers don't sound that far off. 68, 62, 540, 501.
Right.
But when you consider that Black people only make up about 15% of the US population, you can see why these numbers are troubling. Okay. So in GI cancer specifically, data has shown that, because that's a really high number for the population. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
If you're 80% of the population and you have these kinds of numbers, then those numbers are easily absorbed and it's actually a smaller number. When you're a much smaller group and you have those numbers, it's a huge number. So in GI cancer specifically, data have shown that Black patients display a higher incidence of colorectal cancers compared with other ethnic groups. In data from 2012 through 2016, the incidence rates of colorectal cancer in Black patients were approximately 20% higher than in non-Hispanic white patients at 45.7 per 100,000 and 38.6 per 100,000 population, respectively. These trends extend by sex as well. In non-Hispanic Black men, the incidence of colorectal cancer incidence was 53.8 per 100,000, compared with 44 per 100,000 in non-Hispanic white men. The incidence rates were 39.9 per 100,000 for Black women and 33.9 per 100,000 for white women. Black patients also have a higher mortality due to colorectal cancers when compared with other groups. The mortality rate due to colorectal cancer was 19 per 100,000 for Black patients, compared with 13.8 per 100,000 for non-Hispanic white patients. The greatest disparity was observed between Black men and non-Hispanic white men, with reported mortality rates of 23.8 versus 16.3% per 16.3 per 100,000, respectively. Disparities also exist, I know, right? Disparities also exist in other GI cancer types. For example, in a review of patients with pancreatic cancer, investigators reported that non-Hispanic white patients were offered surgical resection more often than Black patients. Black patients were also more likely to refuse surgery than non-Hispanic white patients, and were reported less likely to receive chemotherapy. Marcus S. Knoll, MD, an associate professor of medicine at Georgetown Lombardi Comprehensive Cancer Center in Washington, D.C., had this to say to OncLive. Race is a poor proxy for ancestry, which is linked to genetics. Certainly, there are some genetic differences that may play a role in cancer disparities, but I would argue that a larger piece of the disparity is actually due to socioeconomics, insurance, and other factors. So let me ask you guys, what do you think is at play here? I mean, I have my opinion, but I want to hear what you guys think.
I'll tell you what I think. I think insurance, definitely. I think, do you think maybe there's, unequal access, probably.
Right.
Maybe less proactive and less faith in testing. Is that possible?
Yeah, I think all of those, I think yes, I think all of that is true. What do you think, Lou?
It's all of the above. I think there's a cultural reticence and just not trusting medicine as a whole that needs to be changed. I think there's so many causes here. I think the first cause is, let's just be real here. When we look at healthcare providers, only 93% of them are not of color. So the population has a tough time finding, for whatever reason, they feel more comfortable going to a physician that looks like them and acts like them and can understand a little better. So they are a little distrustful. They'll go to the doctor when they have to, but to do all this well care, which is all the screening and everything that must be done to catch these cancers early and to catch these conditions early, a lot of that's not being done.
It really does matter if you're comfortable with your doctor. And if that's an aspect, then yeah, that really's got to matter. That, it's somebody that's familiar to you, that you can relate to. That's key, isn't it?
Yeah. So let me give you my thoughts on this. I think, first of all, we have to remember that gastroenterologists, GIs, are not the first touch point that patients encounter, right?
Good point. Okay.
I think it's an echo chamber because they're only talking about it amongst themselves. Look at the meeting that they're going to. ASCO GI. Mm-hmm. Primary care doctors are not going to be there. NPs, PAs, pediatricians, gynecologists, these are the first touch points. And this information is not being disseminated to these doctors. I also think that, I think a lot of these GIs, I think that their eye is on their bottom line and not necessarily on saving lives. I think in general, obviously, they don't want people to die, right? But I also think that this is like an unprecedented time in GI where these people are making money hand over fist. And I know that's very unfair to say.
You're saying you think there may be a conflict of interest they don't realize?
Not a conflict of interest so much as that they are used to doing things the way they've always done things. Right. They've never felt the need to do outreach because that's not their bailiwick. Their thing is not outreach. Their thing is, you should know that you have to see your gastroenterologist. You should know that you have to get this test. And the other blind spot that I think they have is that they don't necessarily promote other means of screening. Like, for example, nobody's talking about doing CT colonoscopies. There's not enough push for Cologuard. These are screenings that people would much more easily do rather than prep for, the surgery kind of aspect of having like a full colonoscopy, because that's like a whole day. And then you need another day to recover from that. Mm-hmm. And a lot of lower income people don't have that kind of time. But if you give them a prescription for Cologuard or what's the other one, Fit DNA, they do that at home. And then they would drop that in the mail, and then they would know, oh my God, something came back. Something came back. Okay, now I know I've got to follow up. But they're not empowering the first touch point doctors, I think, with this information to disseminate to patients. And so that has created this kind of this knowledge gap.
Well, let's look at the entire practice of medicine in the United States and how it differs with countries.
Yeah.
That we looked at life expectancy last week, and we were like 20th. And some of the things that
are you kidding me?
That's
wow.
Yeah,
that's shameful.
It is. And some of the things that, I've worked in marketing campaigns for other countries outside of the United States. And yeah, there are oncologists outside the United States in that area of specialization. but there's not 26 medical specialties like there are in the United States. So in the United States, there's no one doctor that takes care of the entirety of you. The
Right.
closest is your GP and FP.
Right.
And they
Or your NP.
yeah,
Or your PA.
or they pass you down
Okay.
to an NP and a PA, and lots of luck.
Right.
Even though, when I say lots of luck, I say that
That's not a knock
respectfully,
on them. Right.
because in a lot of times they spend more time with you and more care and actually
Yes.
look into things. But your GP and FP is not educated in a lot of these things. Their education and their standards and what they look for is just basic health screening. It's the stuff that you go and just get a Quest test, and they look at your lipids, your cholesterol, your sugars, this and that. Just your obvious thing, your weight.
Yeah.
They make sure you're not like turning yellow or something in their office, or some unhealthy shade, or look like a zombie, and they send you off on your way. They're not there to be your health or longevity consultant. In other countries, that's not true. That doctor will look at the entirety of you because that doctor may serve in a lot of other specialties. There's some specialties are just not there.
Yeah. They
some,
call them general practitioners. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, ophthalmology might be a bit to the side, OBG, ped, oncology, and that's it. You don't.
But I'm including pediatricians in this also because a lot of young people now are developing cancers very much younger than previous generations. So pediatricians need to be in this mix also.
So
with what to look for.
Yeah, and remember we talked about fast food earlier, which is still reeling over.
I know
a lot of this is like fast food. We're going to the McDonald's of healthcare. When we go there, it's like you do this, and this. I got 15 minutes for you, and I'm going to see
if you're lucky.
If you're lucky, and that includes giving you a list or reading disclaimers. There's just not a lot of time, and the numbers are just too staggering for that physician to do a better job than what they're doing. Now, this is not a knock on the physician. This is what they're trained for. This is what they're paid to do. This is what they're expected to do. The insurance industry here has set it up that way. It's what's reimbursed, et cetera, et cetera. These physicians, in terms of paying back their student loans.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They're astronomical. If they're independent in terms of paying their office staff, their overhead, they've got to see.
Who's independent anymore? Who's independent anymore as a GP? That's crazy.
Well, there are still a lot of them that are independent, or they're part of a practice where it's it's like a group of doctors partnered together to have a practice. Yes.
Right. Either all in the same specialty or
different specialties.
Or, and those are kind of almost becoming now the new urgent care centers. So it depends on how they gang up, but getting, starting to turn the road back to disparities. A lot of this is controlled by the insurance companies. Now, unfortunately, the more money you make, the longer you live.
Yes.
Well, the higher your income, usually the better insurance you can afford.
Right.
You can insure, and the better insurance you can afford, the more stuff that insurance will cover. When you go to the basic insurance that's provided to people, either through the American Care Act, is that how it's called now?
Affordable Care Act.
The ACA. Most people opt for the lowest levels of that insurance, and it's only if you're working through an employer or if you buy other supplemental coverage can you start affording or even know about these things. The doctor doesn't even tell you about it because it's not covering your insurance, and they don't think you can afford it.
Yeah.
So you're in and you're out. And out the door you go. I mean, your Hyundai dealer does not tell you about the latest development in Teslas. It just doesn't happen.
Oh my God, that's so cold.
I know it was cold. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, GP. There's a reason why I'm not. I'm always getting canceled.
Well, he's the dollars and cents man. He's not there about that.
Yeah. So you're on the subject. Testing is not available for the underinsured because we don't have enough.
It's not that it's not available; it's not offered to them.
Right, and And, not enough genomic data has been done here to say, is it a racial difference? So I'm going to just completely bypass that analysis and say, okay, we know that, the underserved are dying, are getting more cancers, and their cancers tend to be a lot more severe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is it a genetic thing or is it an economic thing? So let's forget about genetics, because we don't have enough data on genetics. We will at some point, but right now we don't. So let's look at the economy of the things. What's happening here is, if you don't have the money, you're not finding out about your cancer until you have symptoms. That's usually a very, very bad thing.
Yeah.
Because that puppy's been growing to where it would have been detectable, given tests, for 2 or 3 years.
Right.
But you're only detecting the cancer after it's symptomatic, not asymptomatic, but symptomatic.
Right.
So because you have symptoms, you've just lost 2 years. Those 2 years may be the important time to catch this puppy before it has other puppies.
Right.
By the time you catch it, it's already in stage 2 or stage 3. The drugs are different. It's a much more acute care, and
your outcome is worse.
Is a lot worse.
Yeah.
So time is of the essence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's time is of the essence. So I read a lot of these papers. I went through it, and I know we have a few more to cover. But what I found a bit of a despair in them here was that they all focus on what is, but none of them not enough focused on what we should do about it.
Yeah.
What can we do about this?
Also, can I just add, and how come these articles never include numbers about Hispanics, Native American, and Asian patients?
Nobody cares about it.
Oh, you said me, meaning as a Hispanic.
Right, me as a Hispanic.
Okay, all right, okay. I was about to say, what? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you fill out when they ask you about race and ethnicity?
Oh, yes.
Forms? I do too. I fill it out because I want it to be counted to better reflect what's going on out there.
Right. Do you think a lot of people are not filling that stuff
Well,
out?
I remember some people saying they never fill that out, or they put other.
It's only now that I'm seeing Hispanic, and obviously Hispanic has to be segregated by 3 types.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because we have white Hispanic, indigenous Hispanic, and what we call
Afro-Latino. Yeah.
I did not see that listed on the forums of the latest thing. I think I had white and then non-Hispanic white.
That's the other thing. When you get into Black, it's always Black or African American. It's never Afro-Latino.
No, I never saw that. I've never seen that. Yeah.
Never. It's always black and white.
So a lot of the data that we have are from tests that occurred 5-10 years ago. So because it's just an aggregation of data. So it's only now that we're starting to do, sub-segmenting. And a lot of this started, let me tell you, it didn't start with medicine. A lot of this started with politics. And while ethnically and culturally, we still maintain all that. I speak Spanish with my mother.
By the way, Louis is Cuban. But go ahead.
You
didn't say it. You didn't say it. Yeah.
Yeah. I only speak Spanish with my parents, and a lot of my close relatives, we speak in Spanish. But at the end of the day, I eat a mostly American diet. I blend in a lot differently, and people may think I'm Italian or Greek or something. They know I'm from somewhere, and I'm not from here, but they don't really know from where, which is a lot different from some of the other immigrants and some of the other immigration waves that have been coming. You obviously know just by looking at them where they're from. So we blended in a lot differently. So our experiences here in the United States are unique to us, and we tend to vote uniquely. We tend to have our own diets that are a bit unique because they're a combination of both, and we have our own disease states that are a bit unique because it's not in one place and not in the other. So that would be our experience. But when you start checking these boxes, where do you go? There's 30 different combinations.
It's like white Hispanic. That's your box.
Yeah.
White
we
Hispanic.
barely have time to do clinical trials with white and black.
Yeah.
If we're going to do them for every flavor, that's why I say these. And I'm a big. One day we have to just do a show on 21andMe and some of these genetic tests.
That would be very good.
Yeah, but we should probably do it sooner than later.
But I thought you raised an interesting point, though, about the fact that, that there's all this talk, but there's no solutions. Like what can people do? What can people do, right?
So is that because it's a meta-analysis? They're like, oh, we're just noticing a pattern. Here it is.
Yeah, it's like
They're
that commercial.
Exactly.
Okay.
Again, it's back to the article in the Post with the autoimmune, which I think is a huge leap forward that they're finally admitting it and saying it out loud. But then they're like,
no suggestions.
Yeah. Well, it's a shame that people have to take these injections. Like, what are you talking about?
It's like that identity theft commercial where they find that you have identity theft, but then, there's nothing done. It's like, oh, they just stole all your identity.
Oh, our job is just to tell you that your identity was stolen.
By the way, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the same thing. Hey, you get cancer, but, good luck. I mean, there's nothing to be done about it.
Well, I don't think there's nothing to be done about it. And, there is at least one conscious gastroenterologist, and he's providing, wait for it, practical steps to move the needle on health disparities in colon cancer screening.
Yay!
Yes. So his name is Dr. Darrell M. Gray II. Mm-hmm. And 2020 data that showed non-Hispanic Blacks had a 20% higher incident rate of colorectal cancer and a 40% higher mortality rate from the disease compared with whites. Also, diagnoses among Black populations occur at a younger age and later stage of disease. Additionally, 2020 screening rates in federally qualified healthcare centers were only 40% among people aged 50 to 75 years, magnifying how socioeconomic factors also play into health disparities. So according to Dr. Gray, at the patient level, colorectal cancer screening hurdles include fear, warranted distrust, cultural beliefs, education, health literacy, cost, comorbidities, and other priorities. He says, we have to recognize, even as gastroenterologists who are gung-ho about colorectal cancer screening, our patients may have priorities of getting their kids to school, putting food on the table, or the lights on that may compete with their ability to come into the office. At the provider level, lack of recommendations, lack of knowledge of guidelines, personal beliefs, support and resources, as well as bias and discrimination all impact patient care. He said, outside of colonoscopy, we are underutilizing the other recommended colorectal cancer screening tests. We also see that by race and ethnicity, compared to colonoscopy, we are not recommending as much stool-based testing to our diverse populations. This is going back to promoting options, but also improving accessibility and in accordance with affordability as well. Dr. Gray offered 3 steps to improve health equity of colorectal cancer screenings: enhance partnerships with primary care, explore opportunities to improve your practice, and recruit top and diverse talent. I can attest to the lack of knowledge part when it comes to primary care doctors. I tried to explain to my doctor that African Americans were at higher risk for right side colon cancer. Remember I was telling you about that?
Yes.
And he just did not understand what I was explaining. He kept saying, I don't understand. It's a tube. What do you mean right side?
Wow.
That's when, by the way, so right side cancer is when cancerous polyps develop in the ascendant colon or the right side of your abdomen colon. So if you put your hand on the right side of your abdomen with your right hand, that is going to be your ascendant colon. And right down in that area towards the hip area, that's where a lot of those weird polyps develop that a lot of doctors can't get to sometimes, that they don't see, and they miss those cancers in Black people. And that's what I was trying to explain to him. I was really worried about having the doctor miss that. Well, thankfully he didn't, but in any event, I also think he's right about not enough patients are informed about the less invasive options outside of colonoscopy, like CT colonography. I mean, you still have to do the whole cleanse and make sure everything is clear and all of that.
Until you mentioned it, I had never heard of it.
Right. You know, and then like I was saying earlier, there's the stool test like Cologuard or FIT DNA. FIT stands for fecal immunochemical test. And I think GIs, I really think that, and this is not a knock on them, I think they're very protective of their turf.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. But you know, I also think that having more GIs of color would go a longer way to getting people of color, you know, over the goal line for screening. What do you guys think?
Oh, absolutely.
In agreement. I'm in agreement with that. Definitely. And that guy mentioned cost. You know, time is cost also. If you can't take a day off from work, that's all under the category of cost.
Because with the colonoscopy, it's really kind of 3 days. So there's the day you have to prep the day before and clean everything out. Then you've got to be sedated the day of, you know, in twilight for the procedure. And then you might have ill effects the next day. You might not be able to go back to work the next day. So that's potentially at least
that's a huge amount of time.
Yes. A lot of people can't afford to take that kind of time off of work.
Absolutely.
Or they don't have
or away from their families because
or the whole infrastructure
around.
to have someone else take care of their family for them to do that.
Yeah, it's like you have a choice. Either go to Disney World on your vacation and get a colonoscopy. And guess
that is a very easy choice.
Sad, but
true.
That's
how it is.
Sad, but true.
Yes.
All right. Well, you know, so that's all we have for today. There are no easy answers. I wish I had some good stuff to say. Some words of
whole foods, eat more fiber and whole foods.
That's it. Exactly. You have to take control of your own health. You can turn these things around. Eat more whole foods. And I know I sound like a preacher saying it over and over again, but if you go to that supermarket, try to stay in the perimeter of the supermarket instead of going into the aisles. Give yourself a challenge. Why not try for 1 week? Try whole foods. Try to get, you know, vibrant colored fruits, vegetables. See what that does for you for 1 week. And if you hate it, I don't know what to tell you.
Or you could say you don't have to like it.
I do have to make a correction here. When we say Whole Foods, we don't say go to the store.
No, I'm not talking about whole paycheck.
We mean plants. Yeah.
Yes. I'm not talking about the store whole paycheck.
I'm talking about with a brand.
Unprocessed.
Yes, I'm talking about food that came from the ground or came off of a tree. That's what I'm talking about when I say whole foods. If you go around the perimeter of any supermarket, you're going to have the produce section. You're going to have the meat section, and then you're going to have the dairy section. Those are the places that you want to spend the most of your money. And the rest of you want to try to avoid the aisles if at all possible. And I know it feels impossible and it feels like there's no way to feed your family, but I promise you, if you just try it a little bit, try to add some green to every meal. And see if you can't build a tolerance for that. I know it's not as yummy as like
you don't have to like it. You just have to do it until you like it.
Well, let's not make it sound like it's such a drag. I think salads are delicious. Don't you think salads are delicious? Or do you?
I love salads. I do too.
Salad. Don't make it sound like it's so drag, Jackie. Good heavens, you're not helping. I'm saying that. You know, you'll learn to appreciate it. It's going to be a bit of an acquired taste because it's not going to be as packed with that addictive flavor that fast food is going to have. It's not going to have that savory taste. But, you know, it's about cleaning your palate and getting to a place where you start looking at the whole food that you have differently and turning away from
True.
That's
I crave salads now. I crave them now. And I didn't used to crave them.
And that's where you want to get to it in your life. So please, people, give whole food a chance. You know, it could mean the difference between having to rank with the gastroenterologist or not. All right, guys, that's all the time we have. I love you guys. You're great.
Love you guys.
All right. See you next week.
Bye.
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 Thanks for listening to Urban Health Weekly today. I hope you'll join me and my friends next week so you can stay informed and inspired to take control of your health. See you next time.